Okay, hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to our industry day. I think this should be our fourth industry day. We've been having one every year, roughly around the same time. We had two as SGG. Previously, we were known as Singapore Games Guild, and this is our second one as SGGA. All right. Okay, so when I mentioned that previously we were SGG, this was before we became a trade association. So actually, we are nearly 1 year old. Yay! We formalized as a trade association last year, August, and that meant that we were also supported by Enterprise Singapore, IMDA, as well as STB. So, being the primary gaming trade association in Singapore, right, we serve as a voice of the industry with our main vision to facilitate Singapore as a premier gaming industry. And with our mission to build and support a sustainable games ecosystem while promoting the Singapore games industry. So we do it by many various ways. One, by building bridges, so making connections with people that are in the industry, both locally and internationally. Communication and amplification. So I think if you follow some of our social media, you would see that we have been promoting Made in Singapore games, esports teams that have won awards, esports tournaments, as well as if people are looking for jobs or like other companies are hiring, we tend to push all these on our social media websites. And then we also dabble with capability development and accreditation. So you're talking about seminars, workshops that focus on gaming as well as accreditation. And then if you visit our SGGA website now, you're able to see a basically functional industry database. But rest assured, we are in the midst of building a one-stop portal that has a even more updated and current industry database. We're also talking to governments to work out our infrastructure and structure and our ecosystem as well. And last but not least, we provide networking opportunities. So I think for those of you who know us from previously, right, before COVID, we had a monthly game dev drink up, which is really just a social gathering, and I really miss that. Hope that we can bring that back. And this is our exco. There's myself from Imba Interactive, Alicia from Elephant, JF from RSG, Brian from Yeastbrit, Will from Ubisoft, Karen from Facebook, and Joyce, who's ex Unity and recently joined us. So welcome Joyce to the family. And then last but not least, we also have our two very lovely MCs, Cheryl and Ben. So all of us here, most of all of the exco is here on a voluntary basis. We have our day jobs, and yeah, our darling MCs are the ones that are on payroll. So later I will do a membership plug. Please give them money. Okay, so what have we been up to? All right. So apart from a lot of the undercurrent things that we've been doing, like really speaking to a lot of stakeholders and governments, right, about how to improve the games industry, which will hopefully translate into action. We've also held our own community events, and we've had this thing called Indie Soapbox, where it was a response to COVID, right? Getting rid of our game dev drink up, sadly. So we wanted a reason for people to gather, game developers and whoever together to really hang out and network, but also to showcase our indie projects, right? Because I think a lot of times when people make their indie projects, they don't have an official channel to promote them. So we held Indie Soapbox. First one is Hide and Seek, followed by Brandery's Total Carnage, Pirate Boom by Sergi, and Gloom and Doom by Drew Pan. So usually we have about like 50 people attending these indie soapbox where they can share their games and get feedback about either their presentation or the game itself. And then we've also been doing bilateral events with the embassies in Singapore. So I think the biggest one, the first one that we did was with the Polish embassy. So we had one with the Poland Shook Festival, right? So usually bilateral events like that is to promote trade between the countries. So in this case, this particular event was between Southeast Asian countries and Poland on how to work together to improve the gaming industry. We also did one with China as part of the WN conference. And with the French embassies, we actually did a panel called Gaming Industry and Gender Equality. So this panel was great. It was a two-part panel, one to talk about gender identity in games and also gender representation in the games industry. So these are some of the things that we were on with the various embassies. And also, we work very closely with Gamescom Asia. So last year, because of COVID, we didn't really manage to have the full-blown Gamescom Asia, right? So they held this boot camp. So we assisted them and we presented some stats and data and also moderated a panel as well. And many, many more. So we support other outfits such as Sagakaya. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the Heritage Game Jam as well as Project Tea House Play from Home, which is a virtual exhibition showcasing our Made in Singapore games that are about Singaporean culture. So we work with them to host the game jam as well as the exhibition. And then we also work with our members and other partners to have collaborative events such as this Tech Talk seminar, which was a collaboration between Unity and Huawei. And then we also sometimes we get opportunities like the Make a Wish Foundation. So we match make people, like let's say a kid wants to make a game, doesn't know where to start, we hook them up with like possible mentors in the industry. And then we also hosted Cargo Studios incubation program, which I'll talk a bit more about that later. And this year, in conjunction with Pink Fest, we hosted a panel called Queer Identity in Games. And then we also worked with TTAP and TUC to have a webinar about the video games industry. So all these is not just for those already in the games industry, but those who are interested in joining, as well as those from different industries, so that they at least know what to expect when they join the industry. And last but not least, we also did focus groups and roundtables. So the roundtable was something that we tried out on Discord. We had a whiteboard and then we had people type in their pain points about the industry and then we collated them. So you can find a lot of these videos on our YouTube channel if you missed them. And then earlier this year, we held focus groups with both the game dev and esports folks, right? And I will discuss some of the findings with you all. So some of the roundtable findings. So how are businesses coping with COVID-19? I mean, the nature of most of what we do is digital. We weren't directly affected by it, right, in terms of business, but a huge part of it was networking because a lot of us are used to attending trade shows in person, networking in person, forming very organic relationships either through a B2B biz matching system or networking after parties, etc. So that stuff was like considered dead because of COVID. So that was the difficulty there to form very meaningful, deep connections and networking. And I think one of the company's pain points, right, huge one is struggling to hire talent that's industry ready for junior roles, and particularly for senior and lead positions. And I think for those that want to start up their own companies or those that are currently in indie studios, right, they cited lack of a safety net for those starting up, because like I think starting up a studio already takes a huge amount of risk and capital, and it would be great if there was a safety net for that. What are the common gaps in our ecosystem industry? So I think a huge part is like there's a lack of insight into different career opportunities provided by the gaming industry, both for game dev and esports. And I don't blame people because like you don't know what you don't know. School can only teach you so much, right? So I think in terms of career opportunities, right, unless you consciously attend events and poke around, you really are quite lost if you're starting out from nowhere. And also lack of understanding of the industry, for example, negative outlook on gaming as both a career and passion. So I think a lot of us, more or less, we understand that in society growing up, there has been negative connotations when you say that, oh, you are gaming, and it's often maybe tied to things like addiction or like etc. Stuff like that, like very negative things, while without highlighting the good points about games in general, right? And therefore that lack of understanding for how gaming can be a passion and it teaches you legitimate things, it translates into why are you even considering a career. So I think a lot of us, when we are growing up, we had difficulties convincing our parents, for example, that we want to pursue a career in gaming. And what are some of the key areas that SGGA can address? So, like, that's where we come in, right? Because we are supposed to help bridge the gap between the general public and the gaming industry, as well as education, right? So, it's like to let the public know that, look, gaming is not just all about bad things, all about addiction. It's also about the good things. Look at these wonderful things you can learn from games, right? Whether it's about storytelling or whether it's about really getting you to self reflect or even just having a very meaningful experience, right? And also, if you choose to pursue gaming as a career, right, what are the education paths you can take and what kind of roles that you can have that will lead to sustainability in the long run? what are the kind of training or capabilities development that would be useful? So among all our focus groups, like a lot of them cited cross-discipline training, because I think there isn't quite a shortage of like maybe gaming industry 101s. People just need to know where to look. But I think in terms of cross-pollination, in order to broaden our horizons on what is possible, right, it's important to really, on one hand, expose gaming to those not from the gaming industry. On the other hand, those already in the gaming industry to be exposed to careers or crafts that are like not typically taught in game school. So I think a lot of us know that like in game education, it typically addresses art, design, and programming, right? These three pillars. But I think there's a lot of other things that schools maybe missed out or they didn't have the capacity to do so, which is perfectly understandable. So this is where we come in. So an example, the cross-pollination in other sectors. Let me start with art. So just now I mentioned the Heritage Game Jam and the Project Tea House, right? This is by a small outfit called Saga Kaya, which disclaimer I'm also part of. But guess what? The rest of the team today, they are not able to join us because they're actually presenting at Amaze Berlin, which is a festival for art, games, and playful interaction. So they're there presenting about Heritage Game Jam. So what was special about this game jam is that we didn't just invite people from the games industry, we also invited people from the art side. So people that were academics, people that were writers, or people that even sociologists, psychologists were invited to jam. And we had some really interesting material from there, like a lot of really interesting games that explore themes, not just about Singaporean identity that we know in mainstream, but like something very deep in their hearts. So this is something we want to encourage, which is a way to use games to explore your identity. And also, I just want to give a shout out to recently these folks from tobeU.sg released an interactive fiction. So to be you is an interactive fiction where you experience what life is for someone else. And the whole team, right, they're not traditionally from the games industry. Like you had people from tech, you had people from Singlet Station, which deals with writing, come together to make this game. So this is the kind of cross-pollination that we want to encourage because some really interesting stuff comes from there. So the second is that in terms of tech, we've actually formed a partnership with the Tech Talent Assembly, TTAP, which is under NTUC. It is a tech association. So we've been pushing out a lot of game industry 101 stuff to the tech folks to get them to explore games as a career. And then also the incubation programs, right? They're really good because they offer proper mentorship and they offer a safety net for a lot of those starting out. So previously, I mentioned one of the pain points was because of the lack of safety net, right? I think things like incubation really, really does a good job because like it doesn't just throw people money, right? And then you go and do your own thing with no guidance. They actually have structured mentorship. So I strongly encourage those of you watching that want to start up your own game company to explore these two main incubators, Iterative Collective and Cargo Studio. So both of these are our members and both of them address different kinds of games. So I think it's worth looking into depending on what kind of game you want to make. So how do we come in the large scheme of things in this ecosystem? Okay, so for us, right, in the long run, even though we're only 1 year old, but in the long run, we hope to build a sustainable ecosystem through school outreach. Because through school outreach, right, we can thus speak to the academic side on what kind of curriculum is current, what does the industry need, and then we help to build bridges. We do data collection, we set industry standards, as well as promote networking and capability development. And hopefully, this will help to build quality talent. So quality talent would equate to quality products and services, whether it's a game or whether it's an esports company. And then when it comes to trade shows, people can then promote all these quality stuff on mission trips, bilateral events, and really advocate the Singapore games industry as something to look out for, right? And amplify our talent. So including Gamescom Asia as well, which is happening very, very soon. And then through this amplification, right, we hope to attract more talent and inspire more talent to join the games industry, whether you're from overseas or in Singapore, right? We want to attract these talent to come to Singapore to work, or if you're already Singaporean, just join the games industry, and then hopefully attract overseas collaboration, which will lead to bigger gigs and bigger portfolios for us. So that's where we come in. We help to facilitate all of this. Okay, so just now I joked about feeding Ben and Cheryl. This is how our membership. Now I'm half kidding, but okay. Apart from feeding them, we feed them so that they can continue to do all these events and initiatives, right, to grow the industry together. Since most of us are here on a non-profit basis, so do check out our membership. Right, there are different tiers for individual and corporates. Or if you really want to work very very closely with us, do explore being our patron as well. So these are our current pool of members, which thanks so much for being the early adopters in our first year, right? We have a mix of people from corporations to indie studios to esports companies, uh, service providers, telco providers. So really, really appreciate all of you coming on board. And with that, by the way, if you're a member, you get quite a number of perks, which is listed down in the membership site. But a main thing for this year is that Gamescom Asia is coming up very soon. If you're a member, you get 10% off for all your exhibition sponsorship partner packages and 25% off for trade conference tickets. So yeah lah, the numbers are there. You make the decision. Okay, strongly recommend that you go because this is the first time Gamescom Asia is like such a huge conference is like happening in Singapore. It's going to be quite a sight to see. So with that, I end off my opening speech, and it's going to be a very super exciting next 2 days. So stick around, join us for the networking sessions as well. And with that, I'll hand it back to Ben and Cheryl. Thanks so much.